Well, the new season of Married at First Sight has started, and yes, it's another ratings triumph for Nine. One of the ongoing talking points, though, when it comes to reality TV like MAFS, is the amount of manipulation behind the scenes. Well, now a former producer of the show is spilling the beans on TikTok and Instagram, with her videos getting hundreds of thousands of views. So let's find out what secrets she can reveal to us. Alex Funnell, welcome to McKnight Tonight.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and happy Tipsy Thursday to you. I know you've got your drink, so well done.
Very MAFS coded.
Yeah, how was tonight's episode?
It was good. It wasn't completely dramatic, but we did start to see an interesting side to Beck, which I don't think we've seen yet. So she started to probably show a little bit of her trauma, a little bit of just a little bit of insecurity, and it did start to plant a seed of what I suspect might come to fruition throughout the season.
Okay, because you were a post-producer on MAFS. Explain the difference between a producer who's on set while the show's being filmed and a producer working in the edit of the show.
So we are just basically given all of the footage, the raw footage with no real direction. We just have to watch it all from start to finish, 70 hours of footage. And then from that, we sort of decide what is the most compelling, interesting, emotional, emotive, hilarious, strongest narrative. And that is the direction that the edit will take. But there's 80 hours worth of footage that we have to sift through. And that's what a post-producer does. So we don't know the contestants. We don't meet them. So we're not really kind of swayed by how they might appear in real life. We just see what they're like when the camera's rolling.
Is the executive producer saying, this is Rob, he's a villain, this is Amanda, we like her?
No, the footage really speaks for itself. So there's an executive.
So is the villain edit not a thing?
The villain edit, I will stand by this forever, is led by the person's characteristics. Like, there is just no world that exists where we would create this like villain out of this pure, nice, lovely person. It's led by their behavior, their reactions, and the way they treat their partner or the people they're in the experiment with.
No, I understand that, but people have been protected in the edit, past participants, yes, haven't they?
I think more than any, but that's not the villain edit. So
No, I understand that. No, but what I'm saying is that there have been participants who have done pretty shocking things during the shoot, but they've been protected in the edit.
Oh, so yeah, I've worked on 2 seasons, and in my season, it was not that somebody did extreme shocking things that they were protected by or protected from. It was more that the villain edit was a more accurate reflection of the way they really were, and then comparatively the other people just sort of paled in comparison, and so maybe some of their scenes were like pulled back a bit.
And what were the seasons you worked on?
The iconic Olivia and Dom season.
Oh, great season.
Yeah, and then the one after that with Claire and Jesse, Evelyn and Rupert, Alyssa and Duncan, that season. Season 10 and season 11.
Gotcha. Okay, we've heard about the Frankenstein edit, where different sentences are strung together. Tell me about that process. Are you trying to make participants say something they haven't said? Are you trying to make it shorter? What's going on there?
We're trying to clarify, because people speak in riddles most of the time, right? So it's hard to kind of get a clear answer when you're interviewing someone, they're tired, they're whatever. It's the oldest trick in the book. It's happened, it's a big part of documentary editing as well. It's kind of just at its base core, it's just to clarify the story, amplify the story. Of course, then there are instances where it gets a little bit, I don't know, maybe taken to more of that salacious level, which is what the contestants probably talk about. But the general thing that we are aiming to do is just clarify a story that we are following. And the story we are following is not...
but let me put it to you.
Yeah,
right?
I'll take it.
I have heard edits on that show where the intonations are completely different. So I assume
what I would
correct.
like to say.
I assume you're working off a transcript, right? When you're going through
correct,
everything.
Yep.
So you get a transcript of all the raw videotapes and everything that's been said, and you go through and piece it together. And that's why intonations may not sometimes work. So there is definitely, and I remember, I'm sure it was Married at First Sight, and I'm trying to find this footage where they made a mistake and had lights, colored lights changing. There was a conversation taking place, and every time the camera changed angles, the lights were a different color and not naturally changing and it showed you how much is edited in those conversations.
But I put it to you, Rob, what if the conversation went on for 4 hours
Sure.
and the beginning of the conversation, they spoke about the topic, and then like 50 minutes in, they also spoke about that original topic. We just have to we have to condense the conversation to make sense, but conversations do not work in a linear way that is fit for TV unedited. And so a lot of those things, continuity and things like that in on and of itself does not mean that it's completely out of context and it's all just manipulated and sensationalized. That continuity point in and of itself is not always salacious. Sometimes it's just as simple as they're talking about the topic, they get off track on the topic, just like all conversations go when you're fighting with your partner and you're in a hectic experiment. And so it's like, oh, let's get them back on topic. Then they're back on topic. Maybe the sun's gone down. It's still the same topic. You're just going to cut out the middle part. And so
I get that. I get that. So are you saying that all the criticism thrown at Married at First Sight when it comes to the editing is not warranted?
I'm not saying all. I'm saying there's a balance. It's not all this and it's not all that.
Sure.
And I think that's hard for people to grapple with. But generally speaking, what you'll find is the contestants who are kind of portrayed to be good, so to speak, most of them will come out and say, yeah, that's a pretty accurate reflection of the way these people were. And so I do get a little bit of a bee in my bonnet when disgruntled participants come out and they're like, that's not the way it was. And it's like, okay, yeah, but the sentiment of your behavior and your intention was encapsulated by the edit.
Look, I've always defended the show in that regards that, well, you still said those words, right? And I have been defensive of the way the show is put together. If you're having a meltdown and they'll say, yeah, but it went for 8 hours. Yeah, but you still had that meltdown. So I'm with you on that, right?
Yeah.
But we're starting to hear a lot of stories about people being taken out of context or, two different things put together. Look, at this time of year, everyone gets on the MAFS bandwagon. People want to have their say. There's been some videos from ex-contestants. I want to play you 2 grabs back to back and then get your reaction, okay, from previous Married at First Sight contestants. Let's have a look.
Hey guys, just your yearly reminder that MAFS isn't real. Also, don't believe anything producers say. They're pushing an agenda. They nearly always come out around this time of year and say their classic line, which is something like, we just hold a mirror up to participants and they don't like the reflection. They can't take accountability, blah, 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 blah. Our edits are fair. Our edits are accurate. That's nearly what they say every single year because they need you to believe the story that they're pushing. They have an agenda. The more that the audience believes the story, the more they're going to watch and be invested and engage with the content, which makes them money.
The head producer comes out and she goes, how are you guys going? And we're like, oh, we're having a great time. Like, this is awesome. Like, we're sleep deprived and drunk too much and it's late and we want to go home, but, we're fine. She's like, well, I'm bored and Australia's going to be bored. Like, what do you think you guys are here to do? We're here to make TV and this is boring and you guys are not leaving until something exciting happens.
Now, in fairness, I once did use that line, we're here to make television, when I was ranting and raving when I was running Studio 10. So I can't be a hypocrite. Give me your reaction.
Okay, so Samantha, I agree with her on that. She is, she's giving an accurate depiction of what would happen at the dinner party. That's 100% bang on. Of course, that is what would happen. I'm not on set, but like ultimately they are there to make television. And that's exactly what they're doing. And so if they're all just sitting around not talking about anything and being awkward, the producers are there to bring the things that are existing, the unspoken elephants in the room, out, so to speak. So I agree with Samantha. Olivia, on the other hand, I think, so that video was in direct response to one of my videos that I posted.
Oh, was it? Sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that Olivia posted that in direct response to my video. And I posted a video on TikTok explaining in a very fair, reasonable, balanced way, in a very kind way and compassionate way as well, about how I was there during Olivia's season and I witnessed all of her footage unedited, and that her depiction on air was an accurate portrayal of her. Olivia has a lot of sensitivities, I would say, and Olivia has, in my opinion, gone on to continue to double down on her perspective, despite multiple media professionals disagreeing with her, despite the majority of cast members that also disagree with her. In fact, I don't really think that there's anybody that agrees with Olivia when it comes to her edit. And so it is all a little bit perplexing that despite all of this, Olivia, all these years later, still claims that she was gaslit and all these things. And so it's easy when you don't work in TV to just lump producers in this category of having like power and whatever. I have no attachment to being a reality TV producer anymore, and I haven't for years. In the last few years, I've worked in factual, I've worked in news, which was my original background. So I'm a journalist. I subscribe to a code of ethics. I'm a trained journalist. I have 15 years of media experience. I studied journalism. I've worked for the most reputable journalism news outlets in Australia. And I'm telling you that Olivia is her perception of her experience. Of course, that's her experience. But I would question her 15 minutes of fame and perception versus my 15 years.
It is interesting. I mean, she did out Dom quite happily about being on OnlyFans, and that spoke volumes to me. You couldn't make that up. She certainly went and found that information and used it against Dom. And there was a lot of gaslighting. I mean, we do see things, but
it was mean girl behavior. It was mean girl behavior.
Yeah.
And Olivia just never really was able to take accountability for that, and never has. She's never taken accountability for that, and she has taken it to an extreme level. And now she's accusing me of being an alleged producer because she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand the difference between field and post, which therein lies the conundrum of trusting Olivia. She does not even understand the fundamental difference between a field producer and a post producer. And so she went in the beginning of that video or another video, she literally called me an alleged producer. So I had to offer my receipts, which was my deal memos, my contracts, my 15 years of experience working at Sunrise, The Project, Home and Away, Neighbours, Married at First Sight, MasterChef. And so I guess fundamentally, I have a sense of justice and truth, to be honest. That's why I'm a journalist. And I have really struggled to watch the disgruntled contestants going out there completely untamed, and just because most producers just toe the line, they don't show their face, they're just like, let them be. But they're just often, in my opinion, not accurately representing the truth. And sorry, okay. I just don't want to let it go.
I understand all that, but here's the thing. I haven't worked in reality TV, but the closest of the kind of manipulation that I can think of in my career, when I was doing promos, I made a promo for a current affair, and it was a story that had a bit of an emotion. I was making the promo. We didn't have tears, but there was one moment where the person being interviewed scratched their eye and I slowed it down to make it look like they were crying. Okay, so that is a manipulation of what the person didn't do. I've owned up to that. I've talked about it. But what are the tricks you guys are using in the edit suite to tell your stories?
So I think the main one, promos are classic for that. Everybody knows that. Promos are classic for that. And yes, bless you. But the thing that I would say more than the Frankens is the reaction shots, the out of context reaction shots and facial expressions is, to me, the classic technique.
So someone's saying something, and in the room it may not have had that much of a reaction, but you're taking a shot from maybe an hour later. Like I'm specifically thinking of the when they're on the couch, and you're taking a reaction that's completely not related to what was just said in the edit.
To make it land, because it might be something like the rest of the cast might not even be they might be distracted. So it's just to make it land in the same way that the music swells, to denote to the audience that this is a significant moment. The music tells the audience how to feel before they know how to feel. That is just television 101. Is that manipulative? Yes, but that is entertainment. You're manipulating audiences' emotions to get a reaction. That is just quintessential entertainment 101. MAFS isn't a documentary. It's not National Geographic. We're not David Attenborough. It's a mainstream Channel 9 show that is it's meant to be entertaining. And it's it's chaotic. That is it at its fundamental base. And whether you agree with that, of whether that's good for society or not saying I necessarily agree with that. I only did it for 2 years. I haven't worked in it for years, but it was fun. I still love it. We are talking about it. It says something, And so that's, I think, important for shows to exist, that I don't want to use Olivia's words and hold a mirror up to society, but it gets people talking. And is that a bad thing? I don't know. I'm not the arbitrator of morality.
There is a lot of concern, though, about how things are shot on set. I know you weren't there, but you've had access to the raw tapes. Some claims that have been made are pretty serious about people being held in their rooms. They feel like they've been kidnapped. Has there ever been anything you've seen in the raw tapes that didn't necessarily get to air that you thought, wow, that's crossing a line?
No, and I think I've never seen it, not saying it didn't happen, but I think this is the fundamental issue. People who haven't worked in television do not understand the concept of a call time. They don't understand the concept of an AD. They don't understand the concept of any of that. People who have worked...
No, but there's a difference when you've been held in a shoot for 18 hours, you've been plastered with alcohol, and you're there until the early hours of the morning told you can't leave, because if you break your contract, we will sue you.
That does sound quite awful, and I feel like if that behaviour exists, which if the cast say it exists, then I would probably err on the side of believing them, because I do believe I've heard it enough times to think that, yes, perhaps that is true. That is not good, obviously. And, yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I don't work for Married at First Sight anymore, and it just sounds like a terrible experience. But also, Rob, how long have you worked in showbiz? Have you ever had, 15-hour call days and been treated like crap by the EP? I have.
Well, that's true.
And
people who work in television are sort of like gluttons for punishment,
yes.
and these people don't know what they're getting into.
That's an element of it. That's an element of it. And I think, if you've worked in TV a little bit, it's normalized. So just like any kind of bad behavior is insidious, and it kind of just, people who work in TV, they don't know that it's bad. And it's taken me leaving TV to realize how awful it really is. But the show must go on at all times, and we're climbing, and we're trying to get our name out there, or we're trying to get something happening. And so you and I, if we sat down and had a few drinks, we would have probably more horrific stories than anything the MAFS cast has ever gone through. But we're still here, true believers.
This is why I'm on the drink.
Literally. Same.
Now, you have launched a very successful TikTok page where you are spilling your secrets. Haven't you signed an NDA? How are you allowed to talk about this stuff?
So, well, I mean, define allowed.
Sorry, say that again.
Define allowed to talk about these things. I don't
Well,
have permission.
Is there a problem with what you're saying?
I haven't heard anything. I don't want to provoke the beast, but currently I haven't heard anything. So I'm just.
Well, do you think you're painting the show in a positive or negative light?
I think sometimes I out some secrets about the show. And I think if you listen to my podcast, I talk quite openly about the insidious, toxic nature of the production company.
Okay, so give me something, because I haven't listened to the podcast, and tell us where we can find the podcast.
It's called That
What are
Show
some of the things
Today.
you're talking about?
So I talk all about so the thing that drove me to start the podcast was basically coming out of 15 years in television. It was my first job out of uni was at Neighbours. And because of that, I've had, dreams that I have then been wrung dry from and just had my spirits crushed. But I still love entertainment and TV. And so that dichotomy is that showbiz, baby. And that's what the podcast is about. So it's with Geordie Lucas, who played Summer Hoyland on Neighbours, and we met when we were younger. And so she's an actress, I'm a producer, and we basically just talk about, in a tongue-in-cheek way, the insidious, awful nature of showbiz, but we still love it. And so...
Well, we do love it. I want to ask you a serious question. Do you think people who work on reality TV shows are moral people?
I think that if you were to do it long term, there would be a little bit of I can't speak for everybody, because the people that I know that worked on it was a means to an end. And Endemol Shine has great taste in taking the most talented people in Australia, much like advertising, and wringing us dry, taking us for all we're worth, and then promising us the world. But at the end of the day, you are really just creating reality TV. So in terms of I cannot, and I don't think any human should purport to be able to make a claim over the morality of hundreds and hundreds of people. This show has been going for a decade, and it's had thousands of people come through those doors. I cannot purport to decide whether they're moral or not, but I will admit that it is an ethical conundrum. It's as all media is. Every single thing you do in media, you're always deciding ratings versus the human. That is the fundamental crux that we deal with as journalists, as producers, as writers, as anybody. We're always dealing with, if it bleeds, it leads. That's what we're taught, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're always dealing with that conundrum. And I can see how after years of working in TV and you're trying to pay your bills, MAFS pays pretty well. It's pretty popular. If you can do MAFS, you can do anything. It's really just normal humans who got into the business because they had a passion, they had a dream, and they're skilled and talented, and they're just trying to make ends meet. They're trying to just get to the end of it, So in terms of thinking that these producers are these awful, satanic people, maybe the people at the top do have questionable morality, to be honest, because I probably couldn't sleep at night thinking this was my main achievement in life. To me, it was it wasn't a stepping stone, but it was an era, because I wanted to know, because I was a fan. And I think there's a lot of producers like me who are just, it's an era, it's offered to you. You want to know, it's like a car crash, right? You're you shouldn't look, but you want to. And if somebody offers you a job on Married at First Sight and they pay you well and you're going to learn all
the pinnacle, yeah.
You're going to do it. And then it's how long do you stay though? So I lasted 2 seasons, and then I was probably enough for me. So,
Fair enough. Alex, thank you so much for your insights. The podcast
That's showbiz,
must
baby.
be fascinating, but I know that you are at Alexandria Funnell on TikTok and Instagram. So from there, we can find your podcast. Alex, thank you so much for joining us on McKnight Tonight.
Thank you so much, Rob.
The best place to watch McKnight Tonight is on YouTube. Help us monetize the show by going to youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight. And you can always become a paid member. That gives you exclusive live streams and early access to videos. Just go to youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight.